Google gave us really good tools for measuring web performance, like they introduced Core Web Vitals a few years ago. IMP became a definite Core Web Vital in March this year. Timed first byte came a little bit later. There's a lot of stuff going on, but there are three metrics that decide whether you fail or pass the Core Web Vitals, and that are the large contentful paint. So I have an example, but most of you might be familiar with it. It tracks the time it takes as the largest image or text block to be rendered on the screen, and this CNN timeline shows it. Like in the beginning, we have little headline visual stories. Then we have the heading 1 for the article, still loading, and then bang, an image pops up. So if a user is waiting until this point, this big image is bigger than the text. So that is the largest contentful paint. Sometimes this part might be the largest contentful paint, because what a lot of people don't know is that LCP stops being measured when a user interacts with the website by clicking or scrolling. So let's say if I start scrolling at the third screenshot, my LCP element, and the one that will be reported to Google is the who has qualified for blah, blah, blah. So it's really interesting that Lighthouse and other tools, GTmetrix, show only one specific image or text as an LCP, while in reality there might be 2 to 5 LCP candidates, and it depends on the user. For the largest content paint, there's a set of thresholds. You want to be in the good part. In the need improvement is also fine, but 4, so above 4 seconds, is, in my opinion, not necessary anymore. And I think 2.5 seconds is actually a good threshold. So yeah, these are the thresholds Google sets, and you have to remember that everything that Google considers is on the 75th percentile. So only the best 75% experience of your users. When I do web performance stuff or audits, I like to set the percentile a little bit higher, like maybe to 85, so that I make sure that 85% of the users have a good LCP. Then the interaction to next paint, a lot of different opinions about it. When IMP became a thing, like Google got back because people didn't find the 200 milliseconds threshold fair. And it were mostly publishers that had issues with this. Also other sites, but publishers tend to be hurt the most because their website is full with providers and iframes and JavaScript and pre-bidding. So they had a hard time and still have a hard time fixing IMP. I will show you a demo of the interaction to next paint at the end, but it's basically a responsiveness metric. So when you are clicking on a navigation on mobile, a hamburger menu, how fast does it actually collapse, or the other way around? The famous threshold, so 200 milliseconds, under that is good. In my experience, most e-commerce, like e-commerce is a little bit harder than a website in my opinion. Their IMP hangs around, although if it's in the good bucket, it's mainly around 80. So no one is actually nailing it. It's always on the edge of failing. Often, unfortunately, I still see a lot of poor IMPs, like even 1+ seconds. And most of the people are in the need improvement bucket. And later on in the webinar, we can show you some stuff in the HTTP archive. And the most frustrating one, in my opinion, I'm curious, which one of the 3 core vitals do you find most annoying to experience as a user? Like for me, it's the layout shift, because it might cause a misclick, in example. This little screenshot, like it's a focus on visual stability of your web pages, tracks how often unexpected layer shifts occur during the loading or interaction with a web page. So the page is loading, and I've already decided that I want bananas. I'm going to buy them, but bang, an annoying top bar shifts the rest of the page down. So everything below the open in app is being pushed down, and then my buy now or add to cart button is pushed aside. This is a really extreme example. Sometimes it goes really fast, sometimes it's a little bit slower. There's a lot of different ways CLS can occur. And for me, I always find it a fun puzzle to solve CLS with the clients of ours. CLS is different in another way, like with the other metrics, we are using milliseconds. For the IMP, we are just using 0.1 up to 1.0, I believe. And under 0.1 is good, above 0.25 is poor, and in between is these improvements. So I think low-hanging fruits for CLS can be tackled rather easily, but if you want to fix a 0.05 CLS, you might have to, I don't know, decide whether it's worth your time. Let's see what chat says. Amount of time that was shifting my rest. Oh yeah, that's disgusting. Yeah, and then the ads gets loaded in dynamically, like via pre-bid. What about the 100 Lighthouse score? I don't know if some of you follow me on LinkedIn, but I've had my opinions about it. Like, I'm sometimes have a discussion with the guy from Google as well. He thinks I'm a Lighthouse hater or something. It's just an inside joke. It's nothing serious, but I don't like it when people show off their Lighthouse score and then their real user experience still have a bad experience. Because Lighthouse is a really good tool to show if you followed best practices, but as you might know, in some spaces, people tend to fake the Lighthouse score by doing dirty tricks like setting a huge SVG. Currently, this is not doable anymore because it's patched by Google or something. But you can just lazy load all your JavaScript until the user interaction, have a good Lighthouse score, but your user will have a bad experience. And sometimes people go to this depth to have a good Lighthouse score, while in reality, the real core web vitals based on field data should matter more for conversion and stuff. I might, shoot myself in the feet. I don't know if that's an expression in English, in Dutch it is, but it's not used for SEO. So the Lighthouse score is not taken into account for SEO at all, unfortunately. Otherwise, it'd be easy. And also, like when we go to PageSpeed Insights or GT Metrics or any other tools, I really love the tools, but it's still hard to determine on which device you're testing because real users have all sort of devices, internet speed. If you have a .com domain, you have people entering from Netherlands, Florida, India, Spain, and in India the performance is a little bit worse because their internet infrastructure is not as developed as ours in Europe and probably most part of the USA. Performance is also an ongoing process. I can launch my website today, hand it over to the merchant, and the merchant hires a marketing team. I love marketers, but some of them are not that performance minded, and I wouldn't be aware of it either. But they just add stuff like A/B testing, heat mapping, chat widgets. I said here. There's a lot of stuff that comes into play every month or every week, depends on how big your project is. But third parties and changes are always happening. And even the smallest changes can hurt your performance. If you introduce heat mapping and you think, let's set the sampling rate for my heat map at 30%, I can guarantee you that the IMP will all the way around skyrocket because there's a lot of JavaScript being injected. Your cursor is being followed by thing, and that messes up with the interaction to next paint. But still, heat mapping is valuable for CRO, and they can make changes based on the insights they gather from heat mapping and then increase performance with their insights. So there's always a fine line between how important is performance versus insights on user behavior. I think you can have both, like just setting up heat mapping for a short period of time on a low sampling rate, get rid of it as soon as possible and use the insight you have and then make changes to your site and then test again, for example. JavaScript, it's a fun thing, and without JavaScript we wouldn't have those beautiful pages, but it can be a pain in the ass for me as a web performance consultant. Audience matters. I already said this a bit, but also if we go to Google and search for Crocs, when I click on the sponsored content, my URL will be different than when I click to the result directly because there's this parameters, queries, tracking stuff happening. And the performance for ad visitors is different than people that just organically go to the site because those ad tracking stuff also adds up to the time first byte of your website, so the overall loading time. And it's also small things that can make a difference in web performance. And that is also why I love it. You can push it to really far limits. And yeah, that's basically that part.